Well, I think we probably better start because I'm hoping that we might get through this, at least maybe get to at least that wishy-washy uh, Aeschylus, the terrible guy at the end. So what I'd like to do is, again, the chorus I should have said last time, although I've been doing a little bit more reading about it, a lot of scholars believe that the chorus was actually sung, kind of like an opera. Now, there wouldn't have been any instruments, they think, but it might well have been sung. And you can imagine it would have taken an awful lot of practice, a lot of rehearsal to get them together. But anyway, Kathy, can you hear us? Okay, we can't hear you.
Okay, good morning.
Okay. And Mike, are you there, Mike? Can we hear you, Mike?
Yes,
Okay.
I can hear everyone.
Good.
I wanted to ask you a question, Forrest, if I may, talking about whether or not the chorus was sung.
Yeah.
As I was rereading this in preparation for today, I got to think, you had said that the actors were relatively unknown. It was the playwright who was of importance in
Right.
Athens. But and that had made me think, well, these are nobodies. But on the other hand, am I right? They must have at least been able to read and write.
Not just that, they must have been quite talented.
Yeah, I would have thought.
Yeah, they would have had to. The performance only came on this one day.
Yes.
There must have been weeks in advance where they rehearsed, not just to do the staging, but to do the singing or speaking, whatever. So it would have been very demanding.
I would have thought. Yeah.
Forrest, on your point about singing, on page 43, it says choral chant. Does that imply singing?
Yes.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah.
I had sent to Forrest the YouTube references that the play is available via YouTube.
Yes.
And it is both. It's between a chant and a speaking that the chorus affects at that particular performance. But I think it was '83 at the Olivier Theaters where they took that from.
Yeah. Did you share that with everybody?
I did not. I think I just sent you the references to it.
Would you mind doing that?
I would be delighted.
Okay. Lovely. Okay, and there's Andre. So we said I said last time, we'll let our expert chorus leader, the leader of the chorus, do the chorus, except for the first few lines. And so maybe, Kathy, if you'd be willing to be a chorus, and Dodie and I will be the chorus, but only for 6 or 7 or 8 lines. And then the much more articulate chorus leader will start.
And remind me, where are we starting from?
Well, let's skip a little because there's a long part the chorus leader does. Let's start on page 27. That is scene 4, where Agamemnon appears. So we'll really get right into the bloody action.
Scene 4.
Scene 4, page 27. Agamemnon is coming in on his carriage.
Okay.
And the chorus leader is going to welcome.
Does anybody else have the hardback version?
Yeah.
I've got the hardback version.
All right, page 30.
I can't find what you're talking about on page 27.
Yeah,
Page 33.
scene 4 is on page 33 in our copy, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, thank you. I've got the hardback too, but
Yeah, there we go.
okay, thanks, Richard. So are we all set?
Okay.
Yeah, okay, chorus leader.
Welcome, mighty sovereign, sacker of the Trojan city, son of Atreus. What way should I greet you? How to pay homage, yet not overshoot, nor send my arrow falling short of proper honor? There are many who have wrongly favored seeming over being, just as all are prompt to grieve with someone who has suffered, yet no anguish stabs their deepest feelings. So too, people make out that they take delight in someone else's happy fortune while they're forcing mirthless faces into smiling. There's no way, though, that a person's look can fool the expert flock judge if they merely seem to greet him with a friendly fawning manner, which is really thin as water.
Let me just interrupt for a moment. In my question, one of my questions, I talk about Agamemnon, about Aeschylus's wonderful insights into human nature, and this I think is an example of that.
Here, here. And once again, reminds me of Shakespeare too, favoring seeming over being.
Yeah, very, very much.
Back then, at the time you led your army off to fight for Helen, I'll not hide it. In my eyes, you did not paint a pleasing picture. You were steering far from wisdom's channel when, in order to retrieve a wayward woman, you recruited men to face their deaths. However, I rejoice now with deep gladness for these labors well completed. As time passes, you'll discover which among the city's keepers have been honest, which corrupted.
First, it is right for me to greet this land of Argos and its guardian gods. They share with me the credit for the safe return and for the justice that I have visited upon the land of Priam. For the gods decided on the case from listening, not to speeches, to the death of soldiers. And unanimously, they then cast their votes into the urn for blood, the blood of Troy and its destruction. Only hope approached the other urn, but left it empty. And now the conquered city still remains conspicuous by its plume of smoke. The winds of ruination blow in lively gusts, while dying embers spread about a greasy stench of wealth. For this the gods should be repaid with mindful thanks, because we have exacted punishment for a presumptuous act of theft. And in a woman's cause, the beast of Argos, offspring from the horse's womb, has ground the city into fragments. I mean the armored troop, which launched its leap at dead of night, a flesh-devouring lion that jumped the walls and lapped its fill of princely blood. It's for the gods that I've drawn out this prelude.
Okay, you know from the note, if you don't otherwise, about the Trojan horse, that the Greeks snuck into Troy, and without the Trojans being aware of it, in the wee hours of the morning, out they leaped, and that's what really turned the tide in the war that had been going on for 10 years.
Also, remembering your sentiments, I quite agree. You have me as corroboration, for it comes to a few by nature to admire a friend in times of happy fortune with no taint of envy. I speak from my own knowledge, for I can read the mirror of true attitudes and see that those who seemed so well disposed to me were really shadows, ghosts. And as for what remains concerning gods and city, we'll convene assemblies that are communal, consulting all the people, so we consider how to make quite sure that what works well at present will remain effective in the longer term. And if there's any issue stands in need of remedy, we shall endeavor to avert malignant spread by the judicial use of surgery, the knife, or burning out. And now I'm going into my palace, home and hearth, where first I shall do honor to the gods who sent me out and now have brought me back. I pray for victory, as she has followed me to stay on steadfast at my side.
Oh, Clytemnestra comes out to greet him.
Gentlemen, you elder citizens of Argos, I am not ashamed to tell you of my husband-loving ways. It's from my own direct experience that I shall speak about the burdens of my life throughout the time this man was kept at Troy. It is a dreadful anguish for a woman sitting by herself at home without her male, however, listening to malicious rumors. They would arrive, man after man, announcing news of ever worse catastrophes. And as for wounds, if this man here had suffered blows as many times as was reported to this house, he'd be more perforated than a net. And if he died as often as stories told, he'd have to have been triple-bodied like some second Geryon. Geryon? Thanks to grim rumors of this sort, I've had to be unbound from others by others from the noose I'd fixed above and round my neck.
Oh, Annabelle, you've been rehearsing, haven't you? This is lovely.
No.
Oh, you read so well. Go ahead.
Nice.
And that is why our child, the token of our pledge, yours and mine, is not here by my side, as should have been the case. Orestes. Don't be concerned at this, because a family friend is looking after him, King Strophius of Phocis. He wisely warned me of two grave uncertainties, the danger you were threatened by at Troy, and then the risk, supposing popular unrest attempted to contrive a hostile plot. There is a tendency to kick a man who's down. So caution of this kind brings no deception with it. And as for me, the well springs of my tears are all dried up with not a droplet left. My eyes are bleared from lying late awake and weeping for my beacon standing there inactive. When I did have dreams, they were so shallow I'd be woken by the whine of a mosquito in my ear. And now that I've endured all this, I can, with heart released from grief, address this man of mine as guard dog of the fold, the forestay that secures the ship, the firm fixed pillar that supports the roof on high, dry land to storm-tossed sailors who'd lost hope, a flowing fountain to the thirsting traveler. I hold him worthy of descriptions such as these, but let this not attract resentment, since we've borne so many troubles in the past. And now, dearest heart, step from this carriage, but do not, great king, set down upon the soil this foot which flattened Troy. Come, women, get on with your task of spreading fabrics all along the pathway he will walk. Yes, let us have a passage strewn with purple so that justice may escort him well inside a home that lies beyond his hopes. Our close attention, ever wakeful, shall ensure that all the rest is, with the gods' help, rightly done.
Offspring of Leda, guardian of my house, your speech was fitting to my absence, stretching out at length. But proper eulogy remains a prize. It's right for others to award. So do not pamper me in female fashion, nor like some barbarian bow down to me with gawping salutations. And stop this spreading of my path with woven stuff, which might attract resentment. It's the gods who should be honored in this style. For mortals to take steps upon such ornaments of beauty is, in my belief, a thing that's fraught with fear. So pay me homage like a man, I say, not like a god. There is very different ring between the sound of footmats and of fancy fabrics. Keeping clear of dangerous thoughts remains the greatest gift from God. One should not call a life well blessed until it has been lived right through in full prosperity. If I can act entirely in this frame of mind, then I may rest secure.
Any comments about this scene?
Well, the purples are, as you know, are the colors reserved for the gods, as nectar and ambrosia were the food and drink reserved for the gods. And here we see I think the whole concept of justice. You simply, in the Greek thought, you simply had to please the gods. That was the purpose of life. So repeatedly you see it with Clytemnestra, and of course you see it in other plays, like with Antigone saying, I just had to please the gods. She's talking to Creon. Clytemnestra will say, I'm pleasing the gods. And a good example of this is when Helen goes back to Menelaus, he doesn't ask any questions. Like, what were you doing fooling with Paris or anything? Doesn't ask any questions. He understands. She was pleasing Aphrodite. So the fact that she's committed adultery makes no difference. So it was a very simple world, uncomplicated, but it was far different from our work of nihilism and of today, of our addiction to passivity that we see with Facebook and so on and so
Let me
on.
interrupt you there.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can carry on. I
Yeah.
just want to mention one other theme that scholars talk about concerning the whole trilogy is the importance of persuasion. And here we see that operating with Clytemnestra persuading Agamemnon, and there's a little tussle that goes on, and some commentators argue that at the very end the issues are not resolved in a kind of rational way, but rather by persuasion. By persuasion, Athena operates by persuasion, not by reason. Something for you just to think about for the big question. So, Clytemnestra.
Well, tell me this in open honesty.
For sure, I'll not betray my honest judgment.
Might some alarming turn have made you bow these to the gods?
If someone with authority had authorized this deed,
And Priam, if he'd had success like yours, what do you think?
I'm sure he would have stepped upon the precious cloths.
Then pay no heed to people's carping talk.
Yet grumbling from the populace can be a powerful force.
The unresented man's the one with nothing to be envied.
It's not a woman's place to show such relish for a fight.
Yet those who reap success may properly concede defeat.
Does victory in this contest mean so much to you?
Agree. You're still in charge if you give way to me by choice.
All right, if this is what you want, here, somebody unlace my boots. And as I tread upon these fabrics dyed with purple, may no envious eye light on me from afar. I have deep qualms about destroying household properties by crushing underfoot these precious cloths that must have cost much silver coin. So much for that. And now this stranger, offer her a kindly welcome. God looks favorably from afar upon the man who wields his power with gentleness. No one puts on the yoke of slavery on purpose. She's had to come along with me, the army's gift, the bloom selected out of many captured spoils. Well, now I've been subjected to your wish like this, I'll make my way inside my house with trampling on purple.
And he goes.
You know, this is a historical reference. I think I read somewhere that it was very difficult at this time to dye things in purple, and that in fact, purple fabrics were worth a fortune in Greece. So
The Phoenicians had a monopoly on the snail or something that created the purple, didn't they?
Right, yes.
yeah, so I mean, when he talks about walking on these trampling purple, in that time, that was a real issue.
Yep.
The sea there is, and who could drain it dry? The sea produces many, many dye shells, an inexhaustible supply of welling purple, worth much silver, rich for steeping fabrics. Thank the gods, we have a wealth of these, my lord. This house does not know poverty. I would have vowed to trample on innumerable woven cloths if that had been prescribed by prophets to ensure deliverance of this man's life. As long as there's the root, the leafage can grow back around the house and spread its shade against the fierce dog days. And now that you've returned to your domestic hearth, your coming signals warmth in winter, and in summer when the grapes are sour, then there then is coolness through the palace as the complete master ranges through his home. Zeus, Zeus, God complete, now see my prayers through to the end. Make sure those things that you ensure become complete.
Okay, a chorus. Why does this clinging
Clinging dread
overcast
overcast
me
me with foreboding,
fluttering
around my heart
as I
as I try to read the omen?
Why
Why this prophetic chant
with
with
no
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 payment,
payment, no
no commission?
Why
Why
can't
can't my spirit
reason,
it
spit it out.
dream
dream light
and
and dismiss it?
Richard?
Time has gone.
Time has gone aging on since the sand jumped off the cable hauled from the ocean bed when it sailed for Troy, that navy. They have returned back home. My own eyes have been the witness. Yet all the same, my heart, uninstructed, sings within me dirge notes without the lyra. Dirge and Arenas composes, dismissive of the strength that hope offers to oppose it. My heart is churning, whirled with the dread of due completion. I hope my fears prove wrong. May it never reach completion. Insatiable desire can fill a house too full. Corruption lives next door and leans against the wall. A life that's laden rich will strike on a dark reef unless some dread can reach its first to keep it safe by throwing off the side a share of all those goods.
Let me
The
just
house
mention,
not sunk, the cramp holds.
let me just mention again all the wonderful similes that Aeschylus makes. We've seen, especially the chorus speaking, but Clytemnestra also. All these rich comparisons, and the Greek audience must have really appreciated the beauty of that and the aptness of his similes and metaphors.
And how frequently they're maritime.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, I noticed that as well, and I thought, well, here we are on the Eastern Shore. This is fun to read this stuff.
Yeah.
The bay all around us, maritime metaphors appear over and over again in this.
So maybe we can become a famous city-state too.
Well, let's put it on the ballot for next year.
Is that the sea was vital to the Greeks. When you tried to go from one city to another, unless it was way inland, and very few cities were, you went by sea, because otherwise to cross over the mountains would be just a huge job. Now they have built superhighways there, especially since the Olympics were held in Athens. And so now you can go, you can get off the plane in Athens and you could be down in the Peloponnesus in no time at all. But in those days you couldn't, and the only way you got from one place to another was by a ship. The way it used to be on the Eastern Shore. Before the bridges. Richard.
Once blood has spurted black and soaked the ground with death, there's none can chant it back to life from the stained earth. An overriding fate holds back those who transgress, a warning that my heart should make clear with full voice. It lurks in dark instead and murmurs in its pain and can't unwind the thread. Meanwhile, my mind's aflame.
All right, we'll come back to Clytemnestra.
You come along inside as well. It's you, I mean, Cassandra. Zeus, far from showing anger, has delivered you where you may share the rituals of the house and take your place with all the other slaves around the altar of our household, Zeus. So step down off this carriage and don't act aloof. They say that even Heracles was sold to be a slave and feed on barley gruel. So since compulsion has tipped down the balance of your fortune, count it as a blessing you belong to masters with ancestral wealth. Those who unexpectedly strike rich prove cruel owners, while from us you shall receive what is the proper custom.
Of course.
It's you she's been speaking to, and speaking clearly. Now that you captured in a fatal net, you should obey if you're going to.
Unless she speaks some unintelligible foreign tongue and chirrups like a swallow, I should be reaching through into her understanding.
Go on. She's telling you what course is best for you. Obey and leave your seat here in the wagon.
I don't have time to waste out here. The animals are waiting, ready for the sacrifice before the central altar of the palace. If you wish to join us in this, then don't delay. Or if you can make nothing of my words, then wave your hands instead with alien gestures to communicate.
It seems the stranger needs a good interpreter. She's behaving like some new caught creature.
She's crazy and delusional. She has arrived here from a conquered city, yet she has no notion how to wear the bridle. Not, that is, before she has been broken in. Her mouth blood-flecked with foam. I'll not waste further words on her, just to be disrespected in this way.
Well, I feel pity for you, so I'll not be angry. Come, poor woman, get down from this wagon, yield before necessity, and take on this new yoke.
Oh, to, poi, poi, da. Apollo, Apollo.
Why these strange sounds about Apollo? He's not the god for someone who laments.
Oh, to, poi, poi, da. Apollo, Apollo.
There she goes again, profanely calling on the god who's not appropriate for joining cries of grief.
Apollo, Apollo. Appalling. You destroyed me. Now for a second time, you easily destroy me.
It seems she is to prophesy her own misfortune. Although a slave, the gift remains strong in her mind.
Apollo, Apollo. Appalling, you destroyed me. What kind of home is this? Where's this that you have drawn me?
This is the palace of the sons of Atreus. If you did not know, I'm telling you the truth.
No, a house God-hating. It's a house that's freighted with much inbred bloodshed, where its owner butchered, a human abattoir, a blood-bespattered floor.
The stranger seems keen-scented, like a hound. She's on the track of murders, that's for sure.
This is what confirms me. What I see before me, these little ones bewailing their own cruel killing and the roasted meat their father had to eat.
We've heard about your reputation as a prophet, but we do not need your visions.
Yo, so hard. What is this? This scheming. What trauma is this now? Utter wrong, this scheming, here within this house. Unbearable, incurable, far off from all defense.
I cannot understand this prophecy. I recognize that other one. It is well known.
Yo, so harsh. So this is what you are hatching. The man who shares your bed, your husband, as you bathe him. How to tell the end? Immediate, inexorable, hand reaches over hand.
I still don't see. I'm at a loss to understand the prophecies these riddles are obscuring.
Such pain, such pain. What's this that comes in sight? It is some Hades net. And she who draws it tight is she who shares the bed, who shares the guilt of blood. So let the gloating crew, bloodthirsty for this race, strike up the triumph cry to mark this sacrifice.
What sort of arenas is this you tell to crow about the house? Your words don't cheer me, no. The sallow drops of blood drain out from my pale cheeks to flood my heart, just as a wounded man's life fades together with his sunset rays.
Ah, it's plain, it's plain. Keep him from the cow, the bull. She wraps the robes around him. Then see how she springs the trap and stabs him with her jet black horn. Down in the watery pool he falls. I tell of death by tricks enough to fill a deadly murder bath.
I am no expert judge of prophecy, but all these things you say sound bad to me. No human good that I can tell has ever come from prophets' skill. Their craft and many sayings lean to fearful things for us to learn.
Oh, so cruel a fate. I mean my own ordeal. It's for my death I cry, poured in to fill the bowl. Why have you dragged me here to misery? For there's nothing but to share death's agony.
Mad-minded, God-possessed, frenetic, to set this music that's no music to your own fall. You're like the nightingale for pity with her lament of itties, itties, perpetual.
Oh, the nightingale with her clear ringing songs. The gods have fashioned her with feather-covered wings. She has a pleasant time, no cause to wail. For me there waits the edge of sharpened steel.
These sorrows God possessed, unrushing, these elegies you mold with passion, where are they from? These darkling, piercing notes of mourning, waymarks of your prophetic journey, where are they from?
Oh, the marriage, joined with death by Paris. Oh, Scamander's waters, stream of my ancestors. Back then I grew from girlhood by your flowing whirlpools. Now, though, it seems that I shall prophesy upon the banks where Acheron sweeps by.
Why are your words like this? All too precise, even a child could hear and find it clear. I find the piercing bite of your cruel fate. You shake me to the core with notes of fear.
Oh, the suffering of my city's crushing. Oh, the ritual slaughter offered by my father. Those sheep flocks from our meadow proved no cure from death, though. No way to stop the city falling as it had to. And I shall spill to earth my hot blood, too.
The horrors that you tell continue still. Some cruel divinity drums heavily and turns your melody to threnody. I cannot understand how this will end.
No longer shall my
Stop for a moment
Sure.
there. Aeschylus really turns a big scene over to Cassandra in the middle of this. She has some, turns out to be a major role to play. How come?
Well, it's because I'm so beautiful.
Well, I think really she's the tragic heroine. I think the play should have been more appropriately named after Clytemnestra, not Agamemnon, because, well, of course, Aristotle lived centuries after this, but in the Poetics, when he defined what a tragedy should be, catharsis is brought about by purgation of emotions with pity and fear, arousal of pity and fear, and that the tragic hero should have a tragic flaw and then make mistakes in judgment. Well, Agamemnon has exit. Cassandra continues to struggle. That's the degree of tragedy, the degree to which you struggle against you don't just give up and say, oh, I've done wrong, just go off and commit suicide.
But how about, but where are you getting, how are you getting to Cassandra here, Ernie?
Oh, what's that now?
How are you getting to Cassandra?
Oh, I meant for Clytemnestra. Oh, okay.
No.
I was thinking of Cassandra. Okay. Yeah, I was thinking of the play being, but Cassandra, of course, is a person. Well, what I think about Cassandra is that she submits to the gods. If the gods, she prophesizes, she knows what her fate is, but she accepts it because, again, life was simple. You fulfill the will of the gods in those days.
But why does Aeschylus, in writing this play, bring in Cassandra and give her such a big part?
For one thing, I would have thought, I'm probably wrong, but
as a foil.
But I think a lot of writers have always identified with Cassandra. The notion of speaking the truth and knowing that no one will ever believe you is close to our heart.
Yeah,
I know what it feels like.
She's also a foil. She needs to be a foil for Clytemnestra. A strong foil. And as you say, Bill, I think you're absolutely right. She's the only one seems to be speaking the truth, and she knows that she finds strength in it.
She's also, excuse me.
Go ahead.
I say she's also one of the few characters who's not caught up in this generational blood feud that's been going on there. She's the closest thing to a disinterested third party looking at the whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, she gives the position of the gods. Again, Ate is set this up because of the house of Atreus, and the sins of the fathers must be passed on and paid for by future generations. So in some way, you have a set up like an antagonist. Another character that is a foil to Clytemnestra in that way, at least in my opinion.
Okay, well, let's go on. Move on.
No longer shall my prophecies peer out from veils, all coyly like a bride upon her wedding day. But springing freshly like the breezes from the rising dawn, they'll stir a swell that breaks yet greater grief upon the shore. No longer shall I offer hints from riddling clues. Bear witness I'm a bloodhound sniffing keenly on the scent of horrors perpetrated long ago, because there is a chorus never leaves this house. It sings in unison, but not in harmony. Its theme is not benign. It is a drunken band, fired up by swigging human blood, and yet they skulk inside, refusing to be sent away. What are they? family Aranes. They occupy the rooms and chant their anthem of the primal wrong, denouncing him, the one who trampled on his brother's marriage bed. Well, does my arrow miss or does it hit the mark? Am I a cheating prophet? Just a burbling fortune teller hawking door to door?
I am amazed at you. Although brought up across the seas, you have the power to tell what happened in an alien place as though you had been standing by.
It was Apollo raised me to this role as prophetess.
He was enraptured with desire, you mean? A god?
Before now, I was too ashamed to speak of this. He twined his limbs about mine, breathing sweetness.
And did the two of you join in the act that makes a child?
I promised that I would, but then I refused.
Were you imbued already with God-given powers?
I was already prophesying all Troy's sufferings.
How could Apollo's anger let you stay unharmed?
Since I offended him, no one believes a word I say.
To us, your prophecies seem convincing.
Again, the piercing anguish of foretelling true comes swirling up and thrums me with discordant preludes. Look, see these children? Like the forms in dreams that sit around the house. Their hands are full of meat, a home-cooked feast. It's their own offal that they're holding clear, such pitiable portions, innards that their father gorged upon. And in revenge for this, I say that there is one, the jackal lolling in the lion's bed, the stay-at-home, who's plotting how to catch the master when he comes. The leader of the fleet and conqueror of Troy has no idea of how the hateful bitch can use her tongue, how she can fawn and lick and brightly dip her ears, then bite. So daring is the female killer of the male. What could I call this loathsome creature? Viper with envenomed fangs at either end? Or snapping Scylla lurking in the rocks, a threat for sailors? A hellish mother monster set on war with her own family? How brazenly she whooped her cry of triumph, as though it was a battle turning point, while seeming joyful at his safe return. It makes no difference if I fail convincing you, because the future will be coming all the same. And soon you shall be standing there and pitying me and calling me the one whose prophecies infallibly turn out too true.
So Cassandra provides us with a lot of information, doesn't she? More and more details about the awful vengeance, acts of vengeance that go back in time, including that awfulness of chopping up the children and putting them in a stew and having father.
And I bet the audience, in addition to Aeschylus identifying with her, I'll bet the audience did too, because the audience, of course, knows all this is going to happen.
Right.
And finally, one character says it, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And this is the first that we've had somebody report about what's been going on behind Agamemnon's back.
Yeah.
I recognize Thyestes and his feast of children's meat. It makes me shudder when I hear it so directly and put in words. But as for all the rest I've heard from you, I'm trying to interpret, but I've lost the track.
With your own eyes, I say, you shall see Agamemnon dead.
Hush now, poor woman. Do not say such things.
There is no way of curing this prediction.
Not if it is to be, but may it never come about.
You utter prayers. Meanwhile, they're readied for the kill.
Who is the man who's planning this atrocity?
That shows how far you've lost the track of what I've prophesied.
But I can't see how he'll devise a way of doing this.
Although my grasp of Greek is good, too good.
The Delphic oracle is Greek, yet hard to understand.
The fire, how it engulfs me. Apollo, me. This is the lioness that walks upon 2 feet, who makes love with a jackal while the noble lion is well away, and she is going to kill me. Like mixing up a potion, she has added her reward for me stirred in the brew, and as she whets her sword to kill the man, she gloats that he will recompense in blood for bringing me along with him. What reason have I then to keep this token stuff, a joke against myself, this staff and ribbons round my neck. To hell with you. I pay you back like this. And see, Apollo for himself strips off his prophet rigmarole. He does this after gazing at me being ridiculed in this array by even dear ones turned against me. I've had to suffer insults and be called a starving pauper girl, as though I were some begging fortune teller. And now the prophet God has done with me his prophetess and brought me to this kind of death-bound end. In place of my ancestral altar, there awaits a butcher's block, still warm with blood from previous slaughter there. And yet, our deaths shall not go disregarded by the gods, because another one shall come as our avenger, a mother-killing, father-vindicating child, a wandering fugitive excluded from this land. He shall return and add the topmost row of stones to cap these kin catastrophes. His father stretched out there shall draw him back. In that case, why lament so piteously? I have seen Troy first suffering as it did, and next the conquerors are being dealt their turn before the judgment of the gods. I therefore take my place as well. I shall be bold to die. This door I greet now is the gate of Hades, and I pray I shall receive a swift, clean blow, so that without convulsion, with my blood outgushing easily in death, I close these eyes.
Ooh.
You,
You know, she's also she's a great speaker. I mean, her lines are wonderful.
Aren't they great? Yeah.
Yeah, Cassandra really is artfully
and
described.
I like that slight southern.
What was that, Richard?
No, I just said I
Oh.
like that slight southern accent.
Yeah.
She's from the south of Troy.
I like that.
You are a woman deep in misery, yet also deep in insight. But if you truly know about your death, it's
Richard, you're breaking up sometimes. Richard,
Whoops.
Richard.
I'm having some trouble here.
Yeah, your voice is breaking up though sometimes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But time is precious. But time is precious at the very end.
No, we're still on God-directed heifer to the altar stone.
Okay.
There's no escape.
But if you truly know about
Go ahead.
But if you truly know about your death, how can you tread so resolutely like a God-directed heifer to the altar stone?
There's no escaping, strangers. None. There's no more time.
But time is precious at the very end.
This is the day, today. To run away would gain me nothing.
Well, your resolve is surely rooted in a heart of courage.
No happy person ever has to hear such words.
It is some blessing, though, to perish gloriously.
Oh, Father, how I feel for you and for your noble sons.
What's the matter, Richard? Chorus leader.
Frozen.
Yeah, he's frozen.
Richard, you get frozen for some reason.
Give me 1 minute. I'm going to switch something here. If you want to go on, I'll catch up.
Okay. Okay. Why don't I pick that up? Where were we here?
What is the matter?
What's the matter? Why recoil in fear? Why retch like that? Is this revulsion in your mind?
The whole house reeks of murder, dripping blood.
No, that's just the smell of ritual sacrifice.
It's like the fetid stench exuding from a tomb.
It can't be the exotic incense that you mean.
No longer shall I flutter like a frightened bird. Now I shall go inside and sing laments for Agamemnon and myself. Enough of life. Strangers, I ask you this, bear witness. After I am dead, that I was right. Once that it's happened, that a woman has met death to make amends for me. A woman and a man has been laid low to match a badly mated man. As a stranger on the point of death, I ask this favor of you.
I'm back.
Okay.
I'm back, poor woman. I feel pity for the fate you have foretold.
I wish to add just one more word, a swan song for myself. I call on this, my final shining sun. Make sure my killers pay back dear with their own blood for me, the victim slave, the easy catch. This is the way it is for humans. If they have good fortune, it is like a shadow. If they are unfortunate, it takes a dampened sponge to wipe the picture clean away. And I feel far more pity for these things than those.
All right, chorus, just a few lines. It is only
human nature.
never
never
to
to
know
know
Satisfaction with success.
Yes.
And
And
no
And
one
no one tries
To make it
stop
moving.
moving into
into
mansions.
mansions.
No one orders,
Yes.
no admission.
What's that?
No one
His
orders,
fingers pointing.
no
no admission.
No admission.
This is true of this man, even one the gods have favored with the prize of taking Priam's city and of coming home in honor. All the same, if now he has to pay for murder done by former generations and to die for his own killings, and by dying bring about yet further killings, if all this, then who could claim that any human may be born to happy fortune, safe from troubles?
Okay, shall we just take a pause for all this bloody scenes that we are to imagine, thanks to especially Cassandra.
Is the would the deaths themselves have occurred off stage as they do here, as
Yeah.
they seem here?
Apparently that was the tradition, to never have a death be shown on the stage, but to be off
Yeah.
stage.
Just
No violence was allowed on the Greek stage, and neither was it on the Roman stage. Actually, Seneca redoes some of these plays, and the Roman playwright. And again, you always get word of what happens off. Someone comes and gives the message.
Yeah.
When Jocasta rips her eyes out, you don't see that gory scene from Oedipus Rex. Someone comes out and says, "This is what she's done. Don't go back there." She's not. When Oedipus rips his eyes out, she hangs herself. Wrong. Scene you won't. Anyhow, all that news is taken to the audience from behind the stage, and
So we hear the murder being done. We hear the shrieks, the cries out, and so on, but we don't see that.
We don't see it, but we see it. It's interesting that while they do it off stage, the language, Cassandra's language, and other people, and other folks, it's clear that these people are pretty knowledgeable, familiar with violent death. They've witnessed it, and they can describe it pretty well.
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Good point. Yeah.
it's a way of holding the audience's attention too. Shakespeare was very clever at this. He knew that his audience would be drunk and not paying much attention toward like the fourth and fifth acts of his plays was shorter, and that's where the violence all occurs. It keeps the audience's attention, right? They're beginning to get, so this description that comes toward the end of the play is important in keeping the audience's attention. People always get riveted by stuff like this.
Okay, well, let's move on to the grisly scene.
I have been struck. Deep, fatal.
keep quiet. Who is it shouting about deadly wounds?
Again, I'm struck again.
It is the king. He cries. His cries sound like the deed is done. We should decide together on the safest course.
Okay, now let's skip the next few lines. The chorus people individually hem and haw. What should we do? Should we go in? Shall we decide? Shall we take a vote on that? I don't know. What should we do? So let's skip over
Before
that.
we skip it, though, I want to know, was this played for humor? Because it's so funny.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
I would think that would be a real break.
Yeah, it's great.
The audience would be chuckling. Certainly.
Yeah, while all this murder is taking place.
Yeah, nice point.
Well, I feel we are agreed. We must find out for sure how Agamemnon fares.
So there we see her. Annabelle?
Ah, I offer no apology for saying things that contradict what I have said before just at the moment. How else, if you are planning harm against your enemies who think they are friends, how else are you to rig the trap of nets too high to be escaped by leaping over them? My mind has long been working out this final contest in my long-drawn feud, and now, at last, it has arrived. I stand here where I struck, and what I did in front of me. I managed this, and I am proud of this, in such a way that he could not escape his fate, nor fend it off. I cast around him an impenetrable mesh, like one for netting fish, a fatal luxury of fabric. Then I struck him twice, and with 2 cries his limbs went limp. Once he was down, I followed with a third, an offering made in gratitude to Hades, the saver of the dead below. And so he gasped his life away and spouted out a jet of blood that showered me with a drizzle of dark dew. And I was glad as is the crop of corn to feel the gleaming moisture, gift of Zeus. When grain is brought to birth from out the husk, it is a proper offering to pour upon this corpse, this blood. It's just, and even more than just, because this man has filled a cup of such accursed crimes within this house, and now he has returned and drained it to the dregs. So that is how things are, you Argive killer elders. Be glad if you are gladdened. As for me, I revel in all this.
I am astounded at your brazen tongue. You're bragging like this over your own husband.
You patronize me like some little woman with no mind to call her own. I speak with heart devoid of fear to those with wit to understand, and you can praise me or condemn me as you like. It's all the same to me. This man is Agamemnon. Yes, my spouse, and yes, a corpse. The work of this right hand of mine, this architect of justice, and that is that.
Wow. Is she powerful or not?
Oh, yes. Yeah. Very powerful.
Yeah.
Woman, what detested earth-grown venom have you tasted, or drunk down what poison dredged up from the deeps of ocean to have done this murder? With the people's curses shouted, you shall be deprived of country, banished with the city's hatred.
Today you sentence me to exile from my country and to hatred from the people and their curses, yet back then you raised no voice against this man who rated her as nothing. Back on that day, he cut his own child's throat as though it were the slaughter of an animal, one from his many fleecy flocks of sheep, treasure of my labor pains, used as a charm to quell the gusts from Thrace. So isn't he the one you should have driven from this country in atonement for pollution? Yet when you scrutinize my handiwork, oh, then you are the righteous judge. I tell you this in answer to such threats. I'm ready to submit if I am overcome in contest hand to hand. But if the God ordains the opposite, then you may learn in your old age to think more carefully.
Oh, the elders have suddenly become a little bit stronger, haven't they? Instead of dilly-dallying, what shall we do? But why is that? It's because they're dealing with a woman.
Yeah.
And the mention of banishment being thought of as being worse than death. Remember, I think it's in Plato's Phaedo. Socrates, of course, practically leaves. He's speaking to Phaedo, and they practically leave the jailhouse door open. Wouldn't you leave and not drink the hemlock? And he refuses. He says, no, this would be a compromise of my beliefs and everything I've lived and stood for. But banishment being worse than death. And then you see that, of course, again in Shakespeare with Hamlet.
Yeah, okay.
You are proud and devious, in the words you speak ambitious, just as you are maddened in your mind, which murders reddened. And the blood flecks flaring show up in your eye whites clearly. You shall pay dear, friendless, trading blow for blow, relentless.
Hear this, my solemn oath. by justice now completed for my child, by curse and ironies, the powers I've sacrificed this man to satisfy. No pang of fear stalks through my house. No, not so long maintains the flame upon my heart. Aeschylus, not while he stays loyal to me. The shield who keeps me confident.
Excuse me, well, somebody's hammering in the background.
Yeah, I'm sorry, my house is getting painted and they're scraping.
Oh, okay. Okay, I thought it might be somebody else, but
I've waited all summer for this and it came to death.
yeah. Okay. We don't want to turn off your sound, Annabelle.
Yeah,
Actually, that's Agamemnon giving you back the line.
so much for Clytemnestra's power, right?
Right.
Okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Here this one lies, the violator of this woman here, the charmer of the golden girls at Troy. And here she is, the prisoner, the prophetess, his double bedmate, fortune teller, believable between the sheets, who used to shuttle back and forth across the benches on board ship. And so they both have met their due deserts. Here like this, he's here like this, while she, swan-like, has sung her final funeral dirge, and with her lying here on top of him, she has served up for me an extra sauce to top my luscious feast.
I wish it would come quick, not after lying sick, nor after pain-filled years, that final fate that draws the never-ending dark of sleep that does not wake. Now that our noblest guard is lying here struck dead. He suffered many ways, all in a woman's cause, and through a woman's deed, his life has been destroyed. Frenzied Helen, you alone have destroyed in front of Troy lives so many, all too many. Now you've bound a final crown, stained with blood too strong to scour, you, the war cause in this house.
They sure lay a heavy burden on Helen, don't they?
Right.
It's always the woman's fault.
One might wonder how much of that is just an excuse.
Well, depends on how willingly Helen went to Troy. Did she choose to go, or was she simply abducted?
There was some dust.
Willingly.
Yeah.
All right, Clytemnestra.
Don't allow these things to crush you, so you wish for death to take you. And don't turn your anger onto Helen, calling her the fatal man destroyer. It's not right to claim that she, one woman, ended all those lives of Greeks, inflicting all this pain that stays unhealed.
Interesting that Clytemnestra is defending Helen here.
Yeah.
Well, they're sisters.
Didn't you say
right.
earlier, I'm sorry, didn't you say earlier that it was Helen's fate that she went there because she was directed to by the god? I forget which one.
Yeah, well, that's part of what we'll have to discuss on the next meeting.
Okay.
How much of it is that and how much of it is their own responsibility and so on. So
But you know, her defense of Helen is, it's a very good moral argument. How can you blame this one woman for all those dead people? Regardless of what Helen did or did not do, she's making the argument you can't blame all the men who murdered each other in war and say it's all her fault. I mean, that's a pretty good moral argument.
By Clytemnestra, yes.
Yeah, it seems interesting to me how the line between right and wrong, good and evil are not as simple as they are in our modern world sometimes. It seems that, it all related to the gods' wills and different gods fighting each other as well. So you can easily blame someone, but as some people say, that what's tragic is that everybody has good reasons there. And when Cassandra sometimes compares herself to a bird, and we talked about birds earlier in the play, and it seems sometimes the birds, like there's an Aristophanes play called The Birds,
Yeah.
where the birds are kind of this communication between humans and the gods. And Cassandra is kind of a bird communicating between humans and the gods. So this very complex line between right and wrong, good and evil, is very complex and very rich. And that's makes it very interesting to me.
Yes, good.
Oh, Damon of, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, Damon of the house, you swoop down on this place and on the differing pair, the sons of Atreus here, and you have lavished power upon the female pair, so similar at heart. It bites me deep, this hurt, above the body now, like some detested crow, it struts and gloating sings its tuneless triumph songs. Another bird.
Yeah.
Close
Now-
wave and nevermore.
Now you've hit a truer version when you name the family Diamond. Patent for 3 generations. That's what nourishes the lust for lapping blood pools. Then, before the ancient trauma can be mended, yet more suppuration gathers.
Yes, it's fought with fury, that strong Damon, never sated fully with misfortune. Everything that happens comes through Zeus, all causing, all enacting. What's concluded for us humans without Zeus behind it? How am I to weep for you, O my king, my king? What heartfelt words of royal lament can I turn to song? You lie where you breathed your last in this spider's web, prisoner of slavish bonds on this squalid bed. Hobbled by this deadly trick, you met with your end, chopped down by a 2-edged blade, gripped in your wife's hand.
Are you claiming that this slaughter is my doing? Stop regarding me as Agamemnon's spouse, then. No, the ancient acrid vengeance spirit has assumed, vengeance spirit has assumed the shape of this cadaver's wife. Aroused by Atreus, heartless banquet server, it has claimed this full-grown victim, further payment for the children.
Go ahead, Rich.
To claim that you are guiltless of this slaughter, no one could stand as witness for that falsehood. How? But that some specter might have paired you, avenging ghost ancestral as a partner, that is possible. And Ares, gore-stained and dark, will make more bloodstream channels come flooding back to where he can claim justice for the babies whose flesh and clotted blood were served at table. How am I to weep for you, O king, my king, my king? What heartful words of royal lament can I turn to song? You lie where you breathed your last in this spider's web, prisoner of slavish bonds on this squalid bed. Hobbled by this deadly trick, you met with your end, chopped down by a 2-edged blade gripped in your wife's hand.
Notice how just before we'd heard the chorus say, well, it all was because of Zeus. And yet here they come back and they blame Clytemnestra.
Mhm. Interesting.
So they seem to be torn between different versions themselves. And so that's, again, what we will be exploring.
Right. Well, I think they're taking kind of a middle ground here. Some specter might have paired you as a partner. That is possible. So ambivalent, I would say.
In my judgment, this man's death was no more squalid than was fitting. It is right that he has perished through deception, since he ruined this whole family with deception. Yet the darling that I bore him dearly wept Iphigenia. He, her father, made his victim. Now he suffered suitably to match his actions. He will have no cause to bluster down in Hades. Now he's paid by fatal sword stroke.
I remain at a loss, helpless without resource, which way to turn my mind before the falling house. I fear the drumming storm beating upon the home, the deluge turned blood, a pelting hurricane. Now fate whets action's edge, keen on the sharpening stone, preparing to ensure that there's more justice done. O earth, I wish you'd covered me before I set my eyes on this man brought to such a lowly bed, this bath with silver sides. Who comes to bury him? Who to lament? Could you now have the gall, when you have killed your man, to stand up there and lead the funeral wail? To favor his past life disfavoredly in tribute for his deeds? Who shall proclaim the graveside eulogy with heart that truly bleeds?
It is not your proper place to raise this matter. By my hand he had dropped down, downed in death, and by my hand he shall be laid down under, not with mourning from outsiders. Aptly shall his daughter greet him, his adored Iphigenia, meet her father at the ferry landing by the aching river, and embrace him, planting kisses.
Damnation meets with condemnation back. To judge is difficult. The plunderer gets plundered in his turn. The killer pays for guilt. Yet this remains as long as Zeus remains upon his throne secure. Who does the deed must suffer for the deed. That's the eternal law. Who can eliminate the seed, expel the household curse at last? This family and dire catastrophe are glued together fast.
I might say that the chorus here sums up the whole issue of the trilogy. Who can eliminate the seed, expel the household curse at last? This has been going on family after family after family. And when is it ever going to end? And we'll get the conclusion, of course, at the end of the third play, a conclusion that we might ponder about how good an answer it is, how good a solution it is. Clytemnestra?
Yes, you've hit upon the truth with that pronouncement. So I'm willing to agree a solemn promise with the diamond of the bloodline, that if only it will go and leave this palace and oppress some other house with kindred murders, I shall be content to manage with a fraction of our riches, just enough and nothing further. This I promise, if I can then purge this household from the madness of our killing one another.
Just us.
Oh, yes. Yeah, we're going from the sublime to the ridiculous now.
Well, they say family function transverses generations, and I think this is a nice illustration.
Yeah, so even my elementary school teachers felt sorry for me when I tried to read out loud. So all of a sudden, I appear on the stage. I greet you, welcome, light of day, that brings me justice. I can say at last that the gods look down from high upon the crimes of earth and make sure humans pay their price. Since now I see the man here lying in woven cloths of Erinys and paying for the plot his father perpetrated. That father, Atreus, was the ruler of the land. When he was challenged for the kingship by Ph.D, my own father, his brother Atreus, drove him out in exile from the house and land. I'm just commenting, this story's already been told in the play.
Sure, yes.
Yes, so, but it's being told again.
Yep.
Unfortunate Ph.D was returned a suppliant at the hearth, which was a way to save his blood from staining his ancestral soil. But as an act of hospitality, with enthusiasm more than love towards my father, godless Atreus made out to be arranging great celebration feast. And there he served him up a dish of children. Flesh, he hacked away at their hands and their feet and served Theatrus as he sat apart, with portions that could be not recognized. So in his ignorance he ate, a dish which, as you see, is proven disastrous for this dynasty. Then, once he realized his monstrous act, he cried out in revulsion and, recoiling, spewed the goblets out. He kicked the feasting table over, and so made it fit the justice of his curse. Like this, I pray, the whole bloodline be overturned. In consequence of that, you see this man brought low, and I have pierced his death, together with the thread of justice. For I was the third child, left alive and driven into exile as a little baby with my wretched father. Justice has returned me here, now that I am full grown and have got this man into my grip, although I was outside the house itself, by linking the whole scheme behind the deadly plot. So even death would seem acceptable to me now that I've seen him tangled in the cords of justice. A few points about this.
Yeah.
He declares it innocent. I like the fact he wasn't there.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I kind of, hey, don't blame me. I wasn't there.
right.
Yeah.
Also,
Yet he's proud that he really thinks he planned the whole thing.
yeah, well, he planned it, but he wasn't in the room. So
Right.
Okay, well, just this, I have no respect for one who acts all high and mighty in bad circumstances. You claim you meant to kill this man and planned this pitiable murder. Well, I proclaim that once you're brought to justice, you shall not escape the people's stones and curses flung at you.
you dare to talk like this, although you're down upon the lowest rowing bench while those in charge are up on the bridge. You'll find when brought to see some sense that learning can be tough for people at your age. A little ageism here. Prison and starvation pangs remain outstanding teachers, even for the aged mind. and your sight, yet you don't see that. Don't kick against the goad for fear it will get you jabbed back.
You stayed at home, effeminate, and schemed against the soldier fresh back from the field, and all the while you sullied his own marriage bed and planned his death, our general.
You'll suffer long and hard for saying that. Your talk sounds just the opposite Orpheus. His voice was so delightful, he would draw all nature to him, while you, thanks to your howling foolishness, will find yourselves dragged off in chains. Once you're subdued, you'll prove a bit more tame.
You think that you'll be sovereign over Argos? You, who when you'd planned his killing didn't even dare to strike the blow?
Because the trickery was obviously the woman's role, my longtime enmity made me the object of suspicion. Yet you'll undertake to rule the people here by making use of this man's treasury. And anyone who's not obedient, I'll clamp down on it with a heavy yoke. He'll prove no frisky, gain-fed cult. Starvation rations and pitch-dark cell will see him turn more docile. This is another thing about trickery being a woman's role.
Yes.
But of course, Agamemnon killed his daughter through trickery. But anyway.
Nice comparison.
Yeah.
And of course, that's what Clytemnestra holds very much against him.
Yes.
Began with a lie.
Yeah, and why not? But why not strike this warrior down yourself, you coward? Why do it through a woman, bringing down pollution on the country and its gods? I only hope Orestes is alive somewhere so he may yet return with good fortune to become the champion killer of the pair of you.
Since you've decided on this way to act with bluster, you'll soon have to learn your lesson.
Come on now, my fellow fighters. Close to time for action.
Come on, my soldiers, hand on sword hilts ready.
And my hand is ready also, and I'm quite prepared to die here.
Yes, you're saying die is welcome. We accept that offer.
A lot of bluster, both sides.
Yeah.
No, my dearest, let's not do more damage. We've already reaped enough unhappy harvest. Let's not have yet further bloodshed. Go back to your houses, you respected elders. Go before you suffer. Yield to how things are determined. We have done the things we had to. If this proves the end of troubles, we would welcome that, since we've been lacerated by the diamond's talon. That is my woman's contribution, in case anybody thinks it worthy of attention.
But to have these people letting loose their tongues against me, trying out their luck in hurling their defiance, should they be allowed to scorn their ruler without thinking?
Argives could not stoop to bow before a worthless creature.
I shall still be looking out to get my hands on you in the future.
Not if some divinity directs Orestes back to Argos.
I'm well aware, whoops, almost lost the book there. I'm well aware that those in exile feed themselves on hoping.
All right, glut yourself and mess with justice while you have the chance to.
Trust me, you shall pay back dearly for this mad defiance.
Keep on crowing like a cock parading by his bird hen.
Take no notice of their further futile yapping. You and I shall take control together and set straight the powers of this palace.
Oh, boy. Okay.
I like the wording here on the chorus. Where is it about mess with justice? That doesn't sound like an ancient Greek turn of phrase.
Uh-huh.
I wanted to point something out too. Back on the line, in my book at least, it's line 16, 18, I think. It just says, you dare to talk like this, although you're down upon the lowest rowing bench, while those in charge are on the bridge. Years ago, I read a great book by a professor named John Hale, Lords of the Sea, which is about the rise of Athens as a sea power and why they had their rise to sea power by the way they used triremes basically gave birth to democracy, because there weren't enough before the trireme. It was only the nobles that got to engage in war.
Mhm.
But with the trireme, they needed more sailors. They didn't have enough men to man all the oars unless they gave everybody the citizenship. And so he argues that it's because of the trireme that democracy evolved. But there's still clearly a sense of hierarchy involved. You don't want to be on the lowest rowing bench.
Right.
And you can imagine why it might be kind of miserable down there. But once again, it's just all the maritime stuff in here. I get a kick out of it. If you get a chance, Lords of the Sea by John Hale is an excellent description of Athenian democracy and history.
Yeah. My cobwebs. I'm 79 years old, so you have to forgive me. But Bill, you bring back thoughts. Hoplites were always nobles. The hoplites with the armor that went, they were always nobles. You're exactly right. And remember, it was because of Alcibiades, the Athenian general, that caused Socrates to be charged with sophism. He was a pupil of his. And he said, well, are you responsible for Alcibiades switching from Athens to Sparta, and then ultimately back to Athens and Persia? And that's a remembrance of just what you're saying about the hierarchy on the sea and about the rise of Athenians to a type of democracy. And
I don't think it's quite.
thank you for rekindling that.
It's not
I
quite.
forgot all about it.
I don't think it's quite right, Ernie, to say that they were nobles. They were citizens.
Yeah, all citizens had to fight. Yeah,
They were citizens. And
yeah. Citizens were expected
it
to
was the
fight in times of.
nobility, the rich people who were allowed to become the generals because they
Right.
could buy the boat. They could have it made, and
Yeah.
hire people and so on. So
But
that,
now, wasn't it true that the hoplites were very expensive, the armor, and
Yeah,
only
yeah.
the wealthy could
yeah, but it costs money for the person in charge of them to train them and
Right,
equip
right.
them and so on.
Right.
Yeah. So, well, we did make it, and we have a little time to spare. So let's see what questions you want to raise before we dismiss this part. And let me ask you a question, if you will. That last question that I put in really came from my brother Lee. How has reading this the way we have done? How has this informed your understanding? I mean, that's a real question. I've never done this before, and
Well,
I'm really curious about this as a method.
it helps me a lot because, well, first of all, I just had my cataract operation 2 weeks ago, so I can't read very much. But anyhow, besides that, my conversation for decades has been with other water. And I haven't read any of this stuff for decades and 50, 60 years or so. And so it brings like Bill's comments, and I want to commend Andre. This type of thing, Andre brought back the thoughts of what he's talking about with Aristophanes. And that it's a progression of respect for the gods. That as we're reading now, the emphasis is you must please the gods. That's ultimate. And we see the progression. Finally, we get to Aristophanes and the birds, and there's a toll station. Hermes can't get through unless he pays the toll.
Well, let's not go there, Ernie. Let's stick with it.
I mean, this method is working that way for me.
I'd like to comment on that.
Yeah.
I've read very little of this kind of stuff, and reading it by myself, even aloud, I found was better. I could understand it better. And now having a chance to hear others read it aloud, it seems more like I'm in the place along with in the story. So I enjoy that better.
And I had not read any of this stuff ever. I read Greek philosophy, Plato and Aristotle, but never read the dramas. And I like the fact that reading it out loud, in spite of my fear of that, is it reminds you it's a play.
Right. It's a performance.
It's a play. You're not just reading a book. It's a play, and I think that reading out loud is kind of a good reminder of that.
Yeah. And different characters have different points of view, and that comes out, I think, in a reading more than doing it silently by yourself.
Also, when you're reading it aloud, it's harder to fake it. If you hit a line that you don't really understand, it shows when you read it aloud, and so it forces you to really think about what is it that he's trying to say there, and then you get it right, and you can read it properly.
Yeah, even figuring out what words to emphasize.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Kathy, you wanted to say something.
Oh yeah, I just agree with what everyone has been saying. It's for me, it's a lot more understandable to hear it orally because it just sinks in a different way, using different senses. And I thank the people who are brave enough to read. Everybody's doing an excellent job, but you really get a sense of the different characters by hearing the lines in a different voice.
You mentioned.
What does my big brother think?
I agree that reading aloud is a great way to understand whatever it is. And the different voices help to emphasize the differences in points of view. So I think you hit upon a great idea, Forrest, and probably that deserves much more attention in instruction in college and elsewhere. Good work.
Oh, God.
He's a master teacher. By the way. And his,
And he's got a great brother too, I hear.
No, it was an experiment. As I said, I've never done this before, and I've taught Aeschylus and Sophocles and Euripides and Plato, Aristotle, and so on. So I've done that, but I've never done anything this way. So I was really curious, and I'm pleased to hear that really does work. Scott?
Yeah, it works well for us. And the other thing is that this has been mentioned, it's a play, but it's really poetry as well. And then there's the philosophy behind it. And so I think in the reading, all three of those levels come through in a way when it's read by us and performed by us that doesn't come across in just my reading of the words.
Yeah.
You mentioned, Forrest, that in antiquity, those roles were all played by men wearing masks, so they didn't play the women.
Yes.
But I think it's great to have a woman voice read Clytemnestra, because that, for me, becomes something entirely different. I really hear a woman talking, and I wish the ancient Greeks could have heard that, a woman speak for Clytemnestra, and not only a man.
Yeah.
Do you think they had actors that had shrill voices or like effeminate voices?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or did they have little boys playing the women?
Oh, okay.
Lance, will you remember to send out that link, that YouTube?
Yes, I've done it already, so everyone should have it.
Yeah. Okay. So you might like to see this performance, which is in the 80s. In the 80s, was it?
1983.
Yeah. Okay. So thanks for including that.
Yeah, of course. But interestingly, on that point, I happen to notice that on IMDb, there's actually a review of that performance, and a couple very learned college professors, with a tip of the hat to you, Forrest, have pointed out that they thought that it ought to have been done with women in playing the parts of the women at that point in 1983. So I thought that was kind of interesting.
Okay, Bill, you had
I just wanted to ask a question, Forrest. When this trilogy was performed, on one occasion, did they perform each play one right after the other on the same evening, or did they do it over the course of a week, or how did that?
I think it was all done at one time. They must have had breaks. They must have had toilet breaks.
Yeah.
Among other things, but I think it was a one day thing for just this trilogy. Then a different day for another one. I think that's the case.
Okay.
But it would take some real stamina, especially sitting on those those limestone seats. Let's hope that they brought along something, maybe a purple cloth.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I hope you spend time now reflecting on the questions that I gave you, and let's see what we can do with those next week, and see what insight we can help each other get. So we'll see you then.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for your reading.
Bye.
Good afternoon.
Bye.
Everybody.